Yeah.
Speaking out from under a stairway, calling a name that's lighter than air. Who's bending down to give me a rainbow? Everyone knows it's Wendy.
Yeah.
Who's tripping down the streets of the city?
All right, folks. Welcome to the Crack House Podcast. My name's Michael Sullivan. Joining me as always, my buddy, my pal, Chris Muscalino. What's up, dude?
What's up, my compadre? Happy Saturday, Sunday, Friday, whatever it is.
Technically, we're recording this on a Sunday, so we can say happy Sunday.
Happy
This is
Sunday.
Yeah, full context. We are doing this at like midnight, Saturday night into Sunday. We were both running around all day. We both had shit going on, and this was the only time we could really get it done. So we're trying to get it done right now. So how was your week? What's new?
Running around, man. We got the hurricane. We were talking off air, me and
Yeah.
Michael. So Michael's parents are out east. I'm kind of smack in the middle. My parents are in Queens still. You know, last time something like this happened was about almost a decade ago, and me and Big Pat and Mike kind of got together. We were holed up in Astoria for about 2 weeks because of Sandy, and I'm hoping that this thing is nowhere close to that. You know.
Yeah, crazy.
Just basically getting all day, just running around. I got a generator coming up on Tuesday. You know, basically securing the stuff. We're just hoping that we don't lose power. That's really the biggest thing. You know, lucky thing is it's August, not October. So, you know, unlike Sandy, you know, we're not going to be running around the next day in 50-degree weather and 3 days later a snowstorm. So,
Yeah,
you know, it's not too bad. You know, just lounge out in the backyard, try to be cool. You know, the funny thing is these places that we work for and stuff, they expect us to like be at work and stuff. It's like most of us are working remotely still. So it's like, you know, even if you're in the building,
yeah.
you're
I'm not.
working.
I'll do what I want. You know, it's like it's kind of like substitute teacher day with most people with jobs right now. It's like,
Yeah.
if you show up, you show up. If you're on a computer, you're on a computer. It's like no one really. It's almost like there's no semblance of like a rank structure of the boss telling you what to do, and it's just like, all right, you're on your computer, you got your work done. Okay, leave me. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll check in with you tomorrow. That's what it seems like.
I'm on the phones all day, and like we work in call center environments throughout the country at my company. So it's like you have incoming calls all day. So it's like no matter if I work or not, those calls have to be answered.
Yeah.
I think some companies work that out, you know, that way. I know obviously the police department is a face-to-face business. So, I mean, you know, that's not really something that this would be affected. Too bad, so sad, that kind of deal. But
Yeah, it's 24/7, 365. So, I mean, I remember driving around when like Sandy hit and just seeing like boats in the middle of the street when I was in like Staten Island. I was going to Staten Island a lot, and you would just drive around these Staten Island. For people that don't know, it's like a super residential area of the city, the forgotten borough, some people call it. And you would drive down some of these blocks that were close to the water, and there would be like sailboats just in the middle of the block, just sitting there.
so, Mike, we're 49 years old. I think in all my years, I think I've been to Staten Island a grand total of about 5 times in my life.
Really? That's it?
Statue of Liberty, a Yankee game, Staten Island Yankee game. See a buddy of mine from St. John's who lived there. Other than that, man, it was very, very, very few and far between in terms of me being there.
I've been there like, I don't know how, my wife has family out there, so
Okay,
I've just
nice area.
Oh yeah, it's like when you go there, it's kind of like this isn't a borough. This is, especially if you go out towards the end, like towards the Jersey part of Staten Island, you're like this isn't like New York City. This isn't part of New York City at all. It's very, very it is. It's like some places I think still have like dirt roads when you get that far out. It's very nice, it's a great place to live. I think so anyway. They got nice houses, seems like nice communities out there, and it's part of the city. We love our forgotten borough, Staten Island.
Me and Michael were talking off air about the hurricanes that have hit over the last 20, 25, 35 years. since we've been alive, 40 years, whatever it is. It was prior to Sandy. The only thing that I think I remember, that kind of hit that was at that area was like Hurricane Gloria.
Yeah, Gloria was a mess. We were in like 7th or 8th grade, I think, when that hit.
We were younger, man.
Yeah,
that was 80. No, you're right. You're right.
85-ish, 86-ish, I think, when that one hit.
Michael's got this big backyard where, big, for Astoria and stuff, where his parents live. And I never forget, I mean, the flooding was so bad. We were in his backyard swimming. And Mike's got like this huge, like all these houses have like connected garages and stuff. There was so much water back there.
Yeah.
I just remember me and Mike's brothers we were back there swimming in his backyard.
Yeah, we were all like wading and it was like waist. You're like
insane.
you were like a 12-year-old kid in waist deep water. That was just disgusting. And it was like, for people that know the city and a lot of backyards, it's community driveways. Like there's one way in and everyone parks behind their house there. And that's basically what I had growing up. And yeah, it was huge. It was like the size of probably like a football field. And like you said, like Chris said, like we would show up, we were there in like waist deep water, and it was just I look back on it now, it's like completely disgusting. But when you're 12 years old, who gives a shit,
Who cares, man? Who cares?
Yeah.
I think I'm froze up here, but whatever.
Yeah, you froze up. You got a nice smile on your face, though. You look happy. You look like you're doing well. Oh, you're back.
There he
is. I actually have to give a quick shout out to my man, the Beige. When we were talking a couple of weeks ago about, like movie things, like dead people in movies. Remember you brought up like the dead Munchkin and Wizard of Oz? Like,
right.
All right. My man, the Beige, Chrissy B, shot me a text going, dude, it's not a Munchkin hanging himself. It's actually an ostrich. It's a bird. And it was part of like where they was there's parts of the movie where they shot scenes with ostriches. Is that how you say them? Ostriches in the scenes. And that's an ostrich in the back of that scene.
Dude, there's so many different things. Like Pat swears it's an urban legend. Your friend obviously has a take on it. I remember sitting in McClancy and Lowenberg, sorry, throw out the name, but he'd have these film classes where he would basically review films with us, right? I don't know what kind of class that we were taking, but we were watching like movies all day. I remember him specifically bringing it up. So whether it's an ostrich or a Munchkin, who knows?
Well, we talked about the Ted Danson one too, from 3 Men and a Baby. Remember they're supposed to be like the ghost of the dead kid.
Oh yeah.
And someone actually zeroes in like on that picture, and it's a cardboard cutout of Ted Danson. So like that one's debunked. I actually looked up the Wizard of Oz one, and there's like 3 different sites where you could go on. Like, yeah, it's not a Munchkin hanging himself. It's a bird. Some people also say too, it's one of the workers in the back, like he was just in the shot. And then I read, I saw this weird article about the movie that remember Buddy Ebsen, the actor, whatever show he was on, what was he, Barnaby Jones or something? He was the original Tin Man, I think, and he put that silver makeup on his face.
Okay.
And it made him so fucking sick they had to put him in an iron lung for like
really
3 weeks. Yeah, it was all these people like who was in the movie, who was cast for the movie, and all this stuff. Oh, did you watch the Netflix thing yet? The Movies That Made Us? The new one is out. And
I gotta check it out, Mike. I watched so much stuff the last couple of weeks. Yeah. Me and Mike had a lot of stuff on tap last week, so we didn't have the episode and stuff. But I caught up a lot of stuff we talked about off air. I did catch up. I did watch. We'll get into it. Yeah. That I haven't, and that's definitely on the docket. Providing I don't lose power tomorrow or Monday, or even if I do and I can, somehow get a little bit of power to watch TV or even an iPad, I'll check it out. Yeah. It's definitely on my bucket list.
Definitely check out. If you're I think it's like 3 new movies. It's like Jurassic Park. I forget the other one. And I think the third one is, of course, Back to the Future. Watch the back. Oh, Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump is one of the other ones. Check out the Back to the Future one first. It's
Let me
great.
ask you this, going back to Forrest Gump for a second. So I love Forrest Gump. I think everybody does. But there's I've read a lot of things where Shawshank Redemption should have won the award that year instead of Forrest Gump.
Shawshank's a great movie too.
Yeah.
Shawshank's a great. I mean, that's one of those tough. You know, who's gonna win? Crazy thing about what was it with Forrest Gump? Like I like that show on Netflix, that Movies That Made Us, because it always goes into the background of we almost cast this person in this role and this person in that role. And for Forrest Gump, they actually wanted Kevin Bacon for Lieutenant Dan.
Lieutenant Dan. He would have made a good Lieutenant
I
Dan.
thought I think he would have been a great Lieutenant Dan.
What's your favorite Kevin Bacon role?
This guy's been in like 9,000 movies.
So many.
I like him in Hollow Man because he's a bad guy.
I like him too. Man.
I like him in A Few Good Men. I think he's very like just straightforward in A Few Good Men.
He played a real, you know what, and I liked him a lot. And it's probably one of my favorite roles, even though it was a minor role. Animal House.
Yeah, that's like, I think that's numero uno for him. That might be like his first big movie.
Might be his first one. He was very young when he made that, but I think that's probably one of my favorite.
Yeah, Chip Diller. He's Chip Diller.
Chip Diller, right?
Remain calm. All is well. And then he gets, dude, Kevin Bacon is so old. He was killed in the first Friday the 13th movie. Wow. The arrow, remember that? The arrow through the neck. He just gets done banging the girl. Yeah. He's laying on the bed and he gets the arrow right through his neck. That was a good one.
He was a cool guy. We met him at Astoria Park. He was filming a movie, not Queen's Logic, the quiz show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he did the quiz show, and he was cool, man. He was down in Astoria Park signing autographs and stuff. I think your brother was there with me that time when we met him. Pretty cool.
Yeah, he's been around. Kevin Bacon. But the Back to the Future one is really good because that goes into casting too. And I forget all the names, but one just sticks in my head of who like guys who tested for Marty McFly.
Okay.
A young, unknown Ben Stiller in like 1985.
Oh, he would have been horrible.
Yeah, they have his screen test. Now, I mean, for people
Let me ask you a question. How many white Canadians are in Back to the Future? I mean, if you think about it, Biff, Michael J. Fox, they're all Canadian, these guys.
Biff is Canadian?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Go check out his IMDb. I just for shits and giggles one time I just looked at like all those like 80s movies, and it's just, especially if you're a person of color and stuff or whatever, why, again, I'm not trying to be racist or anything, but if you look at all those 80s movies, it's like, it's not even like white Americans that like in a lot of these movies, they're like Canadians and stuff, which is like whiter than snow up there, like there's no diversity at all.
I think Canada's like 93% white.
Dude, it's crazy up there, man.
It's super white. It's like super white.
But it was on today, the whole marathon, much to my wife's chagrin. I was watching it, and hey, you get your damn hand off her. What happened to that guy, Crispin Glover?
Well, it got into the whole thing about him, how he's like a super duper method actor weirdo. Yeah. And he actually broke his foot in a scene because he was just stomping it. He was a real weirdo. And he had it out with Robert Zemeckis, the director.
Okay.
And they filmed a lot of scenes around him.
And years later, he had that brush up with Rob's guy, Letterman.
Yeah, he freaked out on the Letterman show. Like, he's not in any of it. He's in the sequel, but it's a different actor. They have some guy in makeup where they, like in, what was it, part 2? When Marty's like the older guy and he's coming in like
yeah.
That's not him. That's a different
guy.
Upside down they had just gotten rid of him. They're like, dude, you are a headache. You're gone.
But, he seems like a wacky dude, man. I know he was in I think he was in that Devil movie with Adam Sandler. I think he was in that.
Yeah, he's had like, he's had that weird career, but he is a good actor, but he's just one of these method weirdos. That's like, it's the same thing like we were just talking about, like what we want to talk about right now was the Val Kilmer documentary.
Sure.
And it seems like that guy kind of like ruined his own career in a sense of like trying to be like the method guy all the time. I
think he got screwed up because he smoked, man. He got cancer. He got throat cancer, which is really, I think, his downfall.
I mean, he's a mess. If you haven't seen it, the Val Kilmer documentary, it's out on Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon Prime. I'll tell you what, it was sad, but.
Oh, yeah.
Let me ask you this. Just go back to Crispin for a second, Crispin Glover, and we'll talk about, Val in a little bit, in a second or two. Who is the epitome of our childhood or the 1980s in terms of actors that you know, if there's one guy, like when it comes to music, we can argue all day whether it's Michael Jackson or whoever. But if you could pinpoint one actor from the 80s, who would it be that would epitomize us growing up? You know, that would it be the guy from Karate Kid? Would it be the Billy Zabka? Would it be James Woods, the young James Woods? Would it be James Spader, right?
What's your age range that you're looking?
Could be any age range.
Are you talking like a Brat Pack kind of guy, or?
No, I'm basically talking anybody that, like, looking back at that decade where we were teenagers in the 80s. You know, I hate to date myself, but if you had to pick one guy that would epitomize, you know, the archetype of an 80s actor that, you know, looking back 30, 40 years from now, I guess kind of like the 30s where you would think of like Cary Grant or Humphrey Bogart, that type of guy.
It's kind of like I get what you're saying, but it's almost like a loaded question in the sense, because it's all right. I'll throw this name out there: Christian Slater. He had a few, right? Yeah, all right, yeah. Tom Cruise has a whole run. Robert De Niro has a few good hits in the, you know.
Val Kilmer, you know, Val's in the equation, right?
Val's in the equation. Okay, like I said, let's go back to De Niro. Starts off 1980 with Raging Bull and ends the 80s with Goodfellas. And then whatever he's got in between.
Goodfellas was like 90, I think.
It's either 89 or 90.
I think it's 90, but
so
let's throw it in there. Yeah.
Okay. Who else has a big? All right. Burt Reynolds has a ton of movies in the 80s. Clint Eastwood has a ton of movies in the 80s.
Yeah. Heartbreak Ridge, right?
Heartbreak Ridge. A couple of Dirty Harry movies are in there.
Yeah.
You know, Make My Day.
Deadpool. The Deadpool was in there.
Yeah.
But going back to Val, so we both watched it. I thought it was good. You know, I found a couple things that, you know, to be pretty endearing. You know, his brother, I guess, had an epileptic fit and drowned in his pool, which was horrible.
Yeah, that was
kind of, you know, just really, you know, my guy Joe Strummer, whose birthday is yesterday, I'm writing the book about. You know, he had something somewhere. The brother committed suicide, and he found him like in the middle of like a park. He was the first guy to like discover his brother, and it really affected him for the rest of his life. And watching this Val Kilmer thing, it really struck upon me, you know, how much of an impact that his brother's death had on him, because they kept on bringing it up throughout the thing. They talked about how his father was kind of jammed up about it, how he was never really the same, and how he kind of, I guess, floated him money for like his real estate deals. The guy was a pretty guy and stuff, but he kind of jammed him up on some level.
Yeah, the dad is kind of douchey. His dad's kind of screws him over. Yeah, like when you're watching it.
He did some sort of bad real estate deal, and either
and then
bankrupt or like he would, give the guy, the money, loaning your father the money to keep him afloat, that kind of deal.
Yeah, it seemed like his father committed like a Ponzi scheme on him almost.
Yeah,
because he was like paying off other people. Like Val was giving him money to pay off, so he could pay off other debts, and he's telling him, I'm investing in this, investing in that, and it all goes like belly up. But I like the beginning of the documentary. For those that haven't seen it, the documentary starts off with Val Kilmer had a video camera on every movie he made, supposedly. And it starts out with he's just hanging out in his trailer with the guy from Top Gun that was his what do you call him? The watcher guy, the lookout guy, that guy that sat behind him, the big guy that played volleyball. And
Rick Rossovich.
Yeah, Rick Rossovich, and then the other dude that was also in it, that they were all in the Top Gun school together, and they were all just chilling out in the trailer.
And they were all just Lamar, right?
Yeah, Lamar. That's right. Lamar's in that movie from
Revenge of the Nerds. He's in at the end.
It was actually his birthday the other day. I saw that online somewhere. I think he's like 60 or 61.
The other guy too, Ogre's up there too. He's I guess in his upper 60s.
Ogre's gotta be, because he was in stuff before Revenge. Yeah, he's been around.
Dude, he was great. How good was that movie, man? I mean, we never really talked about that, and I'm sure it's not really politically correct.
Man. Revenge of the Nerds is a movie that just, like, when we watched it, it was hilarious. You watch that movie now, everyone associated with that is completely canceled. That kid, who's that, Carradine? The guy basically commits,
rape,
sexual assault on screen.
Right.
Like, I'm pretending
you could argue it was consensual, right? But I mean, Dude, it was messed up. I mean, listen, the two.
They
Look,
they stalked the whole sorority with they did cyber stalking.
dude, it was bad. It was bad, man. But look, I was in a fraternity. Other than Animal House, that's probably my most favorite fraternity type movie. You know, I still watch it once in a blue moon if it pops up. You know, you don't really see it pop up like on regular television because, like you said, it's like there's a couple of sketchy scenes.
Yeah.
You know? But even in Animal House, there was a sketchy scene. You know, how many? You know, the girl passed out, that kind of deal. You know, I mean,
it's the 1960s. Don't worry about it. It was allowed. Don't worry. It's cool. It's true, man. And then on top of that scene in Animal House, dude, she's 14 years old you find out at the end of the movie.
That's crazy.
How sick is that?
The mayor's daughter.
The mayor's daughter is 14.
By the way, speaking of mayors, what the hell happened in the city tonight? They had a Barry Manilow concert, and I guess he canceled it, you know, or Cuomo canceled it, I guess because of the hurricane in the middle of the show. Dude, it was a shit show. I spoke to somebody, and I saw it in the Post online. Apparently, they went there. You know, all these people went there to see Barry Manilow. He's like in the middle of the show, and I guess Cuomo declared a national a state emergency or something, and I don't know how he's still around. You know, I thought he was out, but he's not. But make a long story short, they cut the show short, and then I think he said something to the effect. He made some ridiculous comment like, "We're going to take it inside." Where are you taking it inside, bro? I mean, we're still in a pandemic, right? You still got to wear masks here and there, or you don't have to wear masks. I mean,
what is he going to go? Yeah, what are you going to go fill up the garden right now?
I mean, dude, he's out of his mind. This guy. I mean,
hey man, listen, Cuomo's out. You know, he's basically got the equivalent of like "fuck you" money right now. Like, I don't care. Yeah. Look, he pardoned a whole bunch of people. He don't give a shit. Listen, the guy made his money. He wrote a book, won an Emmy. All right, he got caught. He got caught. Now he's like, whatever, man.
Dude, what a fall, bro. I mean, yeah. In politics, I mean, has there ever been a politician on the state or the federal level that's fallen so quickly as him? The only guy that comes to mind, at least on the national level, was George Bush, who was riding high, and we went to war after the Gulf War, and his popularity in the span of a year just went to the tubes because the economy just fell apart. Yeah. So like in a year and a half, his popularity went from like the high 60s, 70s, the rally around the flag type stuff, to all of a sudden losing to Clinton, you know, because the vote got split three ways between him and Ross Perot. Yeah,
he's almost, you know what, too? He comes off, too, with that like Anthony Weiner vibe. Because Anthony Weiner was like almost the same way. Remember when that guy was running for mayor? He was going to beat de Blasio.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then he has like 5 more sexting scandals just pop up. And that was it. It was over, man. That guy went from like leading the race to, yeah, you're done, bro. You're
Giuliani,
done.
I think, well,
Giuliani, Rudy was a long game, slow burn.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, you're talking, Chris, what are we talking? Almost 20 years.
20 years, right.
From 9/11.
And we'll get into that, folks, you know, in a couple of weeks. You know, that was a big impact. And I know me and Mike have, you know, kind of sprinkled that in throughout our shows here and there, but had a big impact on me back in the day, and I'm sure as Mike, you know, being a civil servant back in the day as well. We'll get into that, but yeah, you're right. That was a slow burn for Rudy. You know, that was about 20 years. I'm just trying to think of like really politicians that just went to. Well, the biggest one, I guess, would be Nixon, right, with Watergate. You know, I mean,
yeah.
Now that turned around about in a year and a half. But think about Cuomo. I mean, this time last year, we were talking about him potentially instead of Biden being the Democratic nominee, right?
Oh, the dude, you know, like you
Chelsea
said.
Chelsea Handler was talking about how she wanted to be with the guy. You know, he was everybody's darling. You know, he's going to give the keynote speech at the Democratic convention. And, you know, we talked about it last year with the whole nursing scandal. And you know, we've touched upon it. But I'll tell you what, man, it was quick. It was a quick downfall for this guy.
He's still got to deal with that. Whatever they're going to investigate him on the nursing home stuff, there's still like open allegation. I mean, they closed part of it, but there's still like some.
Go ahead.
They still have like some open allegations against him, and like you said, like there was every celebrity was just. I mean,
gushing over him.
We're all Cuomo-sexuals now. Oh, look at him, he's the best. And now they all just like who ate a lot of shit recently. The kid from the Daily Show, just like because. He did like a complete 180 on him. Like, oh, this is horrible. Meanwhile, you know, you were just saying how great this man was.
Right.
Yeah, you know, and that was all of them. But you know, this is one of the quickest and I say it's like that too, Chris, just because we live in this digital age now.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
the same. It's like the same way, Chris. If you or I climb the top of the mountain for whatever, and then someone just pulls up, "Hey man, look at his tweet from 5 years ago,"
oh yeah,
and it's over.
I'm
You know?
finished. I'm of the yoke, Mike. I've told this to you off air. Look, I am who I am, man. I can't sugarcoat it. What you see on this thing, when I talk to you, if somebody's going to get me, they're going to get me, man. You want to hang me for my words, hang me for my words. What you see is what you get in person. If I saw you, the same stuff I'm saying over there, I'm not a Twitter board, keyboard tough guy. I'm going to say it to your face. I've got nothing to hide. You don't like what I say? Listen, sorry, don't know what to tell you. But no, that Val Kilmer thing was really good. I know we kind of like, mishmashed it with the Cuomo thing, but that Kilmer thing was good, man. If anybody was of our age or just in general,
Yeah.
it was really informative. It talked about his role in Tombstone. Talks about how like he still does like these signings, these book signings and stuff, and autograph sessions. He talks about how we people in the street still refer to him as the Iceman, which by the way, Top Gun 2 is coming out in a month and a half from now. I'm wondering how the hell they're gonna kind of spin him into that.
Well,
'cause I think he is.
Yeah, he's in that. If you run the IMDb, he is on the cast list. Is it going to be like a flashback scene?
CMBI, right?
Yeah, is someone else going to do his voice? I mean, you got a whole litany of things that he can that they could do to him. So who knows?
And for the audience out there, that I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it's a really good show. It goes into like how he turned down Batman. He had a bad divorce with his wife. He dealt with the stuff for the tragedy with his brother. He talked about Tombstone, how he does that every year in Arizona and stuff. And he's got, I guess he developed throat cancer. I guess he smoked. He chain smoked at some point. And we have a family member, one of my uncles, who's had a tracheotomy or whatever the hell you want to call it, where he can't talk anymore. It's just Val Kilmer's, I think, of at the point where he uses a voice box to speak. My uncle's not really there yet, but I guess basically he can't breathe and speak at the same time, so he's got to press like a little button. You see, like those smoking commercials, there's anti-smoking commercials. That's what he kind of sounds like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you watch it in the documentary, Val Kilmer's son, narrates a lot of it in Val's thing of what Val wrote down about it. And then like he talks and he's got like that Donald Duck. He kind of sounds like that with Donald Duck, and it's just it's really sad what happened to the guy. And then what was the other movie that they really? Oh, The Doors. How he really got into playing Jim Morrison. Great movie.
Were you with me when I saw that, or was it someone else that saw that with me?
I don't think I saw that with you. I remember seeing that like on like renting it. I don't remember going to.
I was in the theater for that. Me and my brother are big Doors fans, so I saw that in the theater. And I'll tell you what, he was phenomenal. As far as musical biopics are concerned, that Doors movie is probably up there with anything that I've seen. Maybe
it was good.
Movie, it was really phenomenal. And basically, he said in the documentary, he like lived as Jim Morrison for about a year.
Yep.
And it really put a strain on his marriage, which I guess kind of ended up in divorce a year or two later. And I'm a big Doors fan, almost as big as I am with the Clash at one point. And I've read all sorts of biographies on Morrison. He was a kooky guy, man. Really, really smart guy, but really there's many layers to him. Very difficult guy to, kind of deal with. Always drunk, always high, always pushing the limits. And I guess Kilmer kind of character acted. He got into the role for about a year and lived as Morrison, which I think can be taxing for most people. Same deal, I guess, with the kid who killed him, got killed, with the drug overdose. Heath Ledger, with the Joker. I think he kind of was in that character for a while, and I know De Niro's done it a couple of times as well.
I was actually in Heath Ledger's apartment when he OD'd.
Really?
Yeah, I was.
You answered that call?
I was working in narcotics at the time, covering that part of Manhattan.
Wow.
And they sent us over there. By the time I got there, the body was gone, and he had all these, I don't want to say too much, but he had like all different. He had prescriptions from like Europe and America, and there was a guy there who worked for the state like prescription agency. I don't know what the hell the actual name of it is. He was like the guru of prescriptions, and he knew what medications couldn't be mixed with what. And this guy was looking at everything that was taken from the apartment, and it's like, you cannot give drug A and drug B to the same person. They will eventually die. You cannot,
right?
you know. Well,
Point.
I mean, this was all legal prescription drugs.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
You know, this guy worked for New York State, and he was just going through everything. And I'll never forget being in the precinct later, and like all these guys, they were going through his stuff. You know, like you take their personal items when people die in their apartments or whatever. And I'll never forget, this one detective had his phone, and he was just like scrolling through the phone, and he just looked at me and he goes, "You want to call Angelina Jolie right now?" Like he had the guy was just scrolling through it. He goes, "I have all of Hollywood in his phone right now." But it was right before, you know, the Batman movie came out. He had a desk with a stack of comic books, probably like that high, with the statue of the Joker on top of it. He had a whole bunch of pictures. He was a big skateboard kid. He had his daughter's room, which he had made. His daughter didn't live with him, but when she stayed with him, he had an exact replica of her room in her house where she lived made.
Interesting.
But yeah, it was really sad. I remember we were there for I was there for maybe 20 minutes. And then
celebrity drug overdoses. I think he comes to mind, obviously, first. Chris Farley is another guy. Who is the chubby kid? You know, sorry if I'm not being politically correct, everybody. Sorry. The guy who was, he had blonde hair. He was a little chunky. He was like, he had all sorts of Philip Hoffman.
Philip Seymour Hoffman. I was actually off that day. My other friend a guy I worked with went to his apartment. And he was just
a young guy too, man.
Yeah, he was in his 40s, I think, maybe like early 40s, and he was just, you know, big into heroin, and it eventually killed him. You know. And
then let's see, the chubby John Candy. He didn't die of an overdose. He just died of a heart attack, right?
Yeah, he was just from what it seems like, he was just like a big smoker, drinker kind of guy.
Right. And then Chris Farley, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think Farley committed all sorts of stuff.
He was on, I think, coke, heroin, everything. And they said if you can go online with Chris Farley and you can actually see his crime scene photo, basically, of his body. From what people have gathered, Chris Farley was supposedly very, very Catholic and very religious. In his crime scene photo, they turned the body over. So he's laying on his back. In one of his hands, he has rosary beads clutched in his hand. And what people think is like he was having a heart attack.
And he was praying.
He just started to pray. He just started to pray to God.
These guys are crazy, man. Like, I mean, listen, I understand it's an addiction and stuff, but like you said, when I'm not a pharmacist, you know, I've been around street people my whole life. I've seen a lot of stuff. I can tell you, like, you start mixing stuff, you know, you start mixing really hardcore drugs, you're asking for trouble, especially if you're a big person, or, you know, you got any sort of underlying shit.
It's anything, man.
It's not the smartest thing to do.
No,
you know?
But it's like an addiction. You know, once that addiction takes hold of you, it's like a snake. It's coiled you. I mean, I did
alcohol and stuff. You know, alcohol. I mean, and listen, you can, you know, mess yourself up and kill yourself with alcohol too. But just if, you know, a lot of these guys are smart people, like they're Hollywood actors and stuff, or maybe they're not. I don't know, whatever the deal is. But, you know, you would think, you know what, if I mix speed and I take heroin at the same time, it's going to give me a great high, but, you know, it could stop my heart. Like, I remember back in the 80s, you know, I mean, going back to the 80s for a second. I mean, I just remember Len Bias, right?
Yeah.
You know, just like, oh, if you do drugs, you're going to drop dead like Len Bias, you know, who was the Jordan before Jordan, you know?
He was supposed to be the guy to save Boston.
Right.
You know?
Your buddy Henry was a big Henry T. He was a big Boston Celtic fan.
Yeah. But yeah, that shit is like like I said, once it takes hold of you, you don't care. Like, I mean, dude, I've interviewed guys that are like, yeah, I was straight till I got into crack and heroin. And then like I would have sex with men so I could go buy drugs. Dude, when I had a guy tell us one time, he goes, I have 3 kids and I love crack. He goes, he was like a glory hole dude. He goes,
nice.
he goes, stick your dick through a hole and I'll suck it for money. Dude, that's a guy telling you, like, you know.
what was that movie? South something in the I forgot that movie in the early '90s. It was like it was in the hood. I'll I'll ask your you know what for a hamburger or a cheeseburger.
Yeah, like Boys in the Hood, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that Boys?
Wasn't Boys in the Hood. It was another movie. I forgot the name of the movie. It'll come to me in a couple moments, but it was real raunchy, gritty movie, and like the guy
Yeah.
kind of did what you said. You know, he was just like wanted to get drugs and you
Yeah.
do whatever you need. Kind of like Downey and Less Than Zero, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly like that. Yeah, remember the
Yep.
end of that movie? He's ready to Iron Man's ready to blow a dude for crack. You know, I mean, and I mean that kind of like that mirrored his life almost at the time too.
Yeah, man.
He was heavy into drugs and stuff, and thank God he cleaned. That's one of the biggest redemption stories probably ever.
I would agree, man. And I'll tell you, going back to my question before, I think he's in there. He's in there for '80s acting.
Yeah,
You know, Emilio Estevez, throw him in there.
Emilio Estevez, Charlie Sheen.
Charlie Sheen, right?
I like Men at Work. Men at Work was just on the other day, and I watched it for probably like a half hour. It's a cute little 80s. It's if you just take it for like the 80s time capsule that it's in, that's a funny movie, man.
No, it is, Mike. It is. How about Ferris Bueller?
All right. What is he? All right. He has Biloxi Blues, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. What else does he have?
Oh, Biloxi Blues. He's got Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He had War Games in '83.
All right. War Games is a big one, man. That's like it's almost forgotten now. It seems like you couldn't, you could remake that? Would you remake that movie? I mean, I think
you could.
It was so ahead of its time in a sense with computers and modems, and no one knew what that shit was when we were kids. Like, wait a minute, you could just hook up your phone and do all this shit with computers and.
Dude, I think it was well ahead of its time, and I do think you could remake that movie.
Yeah,
I definitely think you can kind of change the countries and stuff, and
you could
definitely make that.
He could do that whole movie now from his phone. He
Oh,
could start global thermonuclear war from a phone.
Well, did you see with Tesla? What's his face? Elon Musk. He's got like the humanoid robots now, the AI robots that are gonna be in place. They look like I guess the robots from iRobot from Will Smith.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's creepy. I know,
it's coming, man. And I think it's gonna happen in our lifetime, to be honest with you.
I was talking to somebody else about this, like with robots and stuff, and it's funny the way like the Japanese see robots, they welcome it. Like we always do robots as like the Terminator, and like we're living in fear,
right?
And the way the Japanese see it, it's like this will help us. This is going to be our buddy. Our pet. Look, it's a little dog that can do backflips, or it's something that can lift something heavy and make our life easier. And we always look at it as like the doom and gloom robot.
I think it's a great analogy. I think it's a great point that you make. I definitely agree. I think that we look at it completely different. I think Terminator scarred us. I really do.
Yeah. And I mean, we have. I don't know if you could say like the Japanese and the Japanese work ethic and the American work ethic are almost kind of like the same. Like we just get up and go to work. Get up and go to work. We have it more in our heads like these things are going to take our jobs. I don't think the Japanese look at it that way.
No, I don't think so.
We look at it as like this thing will take away jobs from like the auto. Look at the auto industry. How many people will put out of work?
No, I agree. I absolutely agree. I think we look at it completely different. I think the Japanese have had it in their society for many years. And let's go back to the Terminator for a second. Did you see what the Arnold said about, I guess, people not masking up or getting the vaccine and stuff?
Screw your freedom.
Screw your freedom.
Screw your
Arnold, you know what I figured out? And this completely skipped my mind. I know it came up years ago. The guy's father was a Nazi. Card-carrying member of the Nazi party. Which to me, I mean, listen, I think we spoke about this on air, and I think maybe off air as well. I don't want to hear nothing from you, Arnold. I really don't. Your father was, again, you're not your father. You're not responsible for your father, but not the best context in terms of, making comments like that. And I think there was another thing where I think he visited Austria or Germany, like in the early 90s or late 80s. Werthenheim, I think he was associated with him on some level too. He's got a little bit, Kurt Werthenheim, right?
Yeah, that guy was a Nazi that became like the chancellor of Germany, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to hear
Yeah.
anything from Arnold. So to be honest with you, I don't want to hear any bullshit. Listen, we all know, everybody's going to do what they're going to do. I'm probably going to get vaccinated soon. And we've talked about this countless amount of times. I don't want to be hearing anybody whose father was a Nazi and who associates with people like that about F your freedom. Not the greatest context.
Dude, he's a guy that ruined the Terminator franchise with these like last 2 or 3 movies that they made that were just awful to watch.
Mhm.
So when he puts out a good movie, then I'll listen to him again. If they're supposed to reboot Predator, I heard. If that's good, then maybe I'll listen to Arnold. But right now, I don't. Shut the fuck up, dude.
Seriously, he was the governor of California at one point.
The governor of California. Then he
By the
banged.
way,
Then
by
he,
the way,
he
go ahead.
banged his maid and had
Banged
the
his
kid.
maid.
Yeah.
He's not the greatest guy, Arnold. He really isn't. I mean, I like a lot of his movies. Obviously, you too. But I remember Green Day made a song about him. The whole what was it? I'm just trying to think of the name of the song where they talk about the governor of California. Sees Heil to the government, cash man. And it's like, if you don't agree with us, we'll bomb the Eiffel Tower and stuff. It was really political, like when Bush was in office.
Well, I mean, too, it was like he just won because he was Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, think about it. He's a very conservative Republican dude and became the governor of California, which is probably the most liberal, one of the most liberal states and the biggest liberal state in this country.
That's why I think. Going back to our early discussions about The Rock, I think The Rock's got a shot just based on that alone.
Yeah, he's gonna. I think if he wanted to run in 2024, he could.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the best thing he would do is just run on an independent ticket that leans left, and he could probably be the next president of the United States.
I think he's got a great shot, Mike. We talked about it.
The way, if you really get into it, the way the WWFE, whatever you want to call it, Vince McMahon knows how to market things. And if Vince McMahon is in his corner, he's going to tell him, listen, man, you got to say this. You got to say that. This is how you get, what do they say in the business? This is how they're putting you. I'm going to put you over with this. I want to put you over with that. And, give John Cena a job in your cabinet and you'll probably be.
Yep. And all of a sudden you got that movie with Terry Crews.
Yeah. Mick Foley. Make Mick Foley the Secretary of State.
Who, by the way, Mick Foley lives not too far from me.
Yeah, he's a Long Island dude, right?
He's in Stony
Brook. He grew
up.
Yeah, he grew up out there. I saw him
once in a while. I see him at the St. James post office. He hangs around there a little bit. He walks around. And there's another guy I spoke to who I forgot who I spoke to who wrestled with him back in the 80s or the 70s. The kid went to school out here, I guess on Long Island, and he said something to the same effect, like he ran to Mick Foley a couple of times, in the St. James area. He's a local guy. You see him often. Another guy is Dee Snider. I used to see him in Syosset. He's another guy, not wrestling, but same deal.
Twisted. He looks like an old Sarah Jessica Parker now.
He does, man.
Kind of weird.
Take it.
But Mick Foley. I saw Mick Foley once at a Yankee game. Very nice guy.
Okay.
He was there with his kid. He was walking in, said hello to everybody, and went in and did his thing. Went in, watched the game.
Malice at the Palace, Mike. Did you check that out?
I was just gonna bring that up. Yep, I checked it out. I thought it was really good. What did you think?
I did too. I thought it was phenomenal, man. Like I'm not a big basketball fan anymore, but back then I was. And obviously I'm a big Knicks fan. They've sucked for the last 20 years. They're getting better, but I remember that. And I remember looking at it. And I remember laughing at it with one of my coworkers. And one of my coworkers was an basketball player in France. He went to Delaware State. And Leon is like 6'7", 6'8". He came to work with me. I guess what ended up happening, he had to be vested for a couple of years in the French basketball league in order to collect his pension. And he worked with me a couple of years at my place of business. And anyways, the Malice at the Palace came up, and Leon's a big guy and I'm not so big. And he's like, dude, if I was playing basketball and you came onto the court with a clenched fist, I would have done the same thing that Artest did. I would have knocked you
Yeah.
into next year. And
How do you not?
Leon was like, there's no excuse for that. And really the crowd was completely out of control. There were a couple things that struck me. I enjoyed it a lot. I really thought it took the side of the crowd more than it took the players. And they went into
definitely at the beginning of it.
Yeah. They definitely brought up, the racial aspect of it. They definitely turned it on the players. There was no question, which I got to be honest with you. Artest really set it off. I think Artest is really messed up in the head. But there was a guy we used to call at my place of business. We used to call him Artest because he wasn't too right in the head as well. But the racial component of it struck me where, for the first time I saw a documentary really siding with the crowd more so than the players. Secondly, you really go into the psychosis of Ron Artest, who really kind of set that whole thing off. They talked about the guy who threw the beer that set off the whole riot. They talked about the two idiots that came onto the court and, physically accosted
those guys,
Artest.
those dicks.
And, I guess they showed the prosecutor, who I guess was going through like countless amount of videotapes, and I guess isolated everybody that was involved in the incident.
They broke everything down. Yeah.
And I guess he recognized the guy that threw the beer that set the whole thing in motion, who threw the beer.
Yeah, it was like his neighbor, right?
His neighbor or something, right?
I know that guy, yeah.
And I think that's how they nabbed him. And I guess towards the end, Artest asked for a trade the next year because I guess he couldn't deal with the pressure. And those guys that kind of stuck up for him, and kind of, went after the crowd, kind of felt betrayed. It was really messed up. Listen, I think it was a bad black eye for basketball. And by the way, for those who follow basketball, who was a referee in that?
No.
Tim Donahue, the guy who was involved in the betting.
Oh, that guy was. He
was the ref. They had him in the documentary too. Let me tell you, man, with all the things that have happened to basketball the last 20 years, and even now with all the divisive stuff that comes out of that league. And listen, I know people are going to listen to me and say, this guy's full of shit. He's just doesn't like LeBron or whatever. I can't imagine how the NBA has sustained the popularity that they have at this point. It's a great sport to watch, but I got to tell you, with all the things that have happened, including this, and this really set things in motion, I think, in terms of like really kind of killing the vibe that you got from the Jordan years. When we grew up, Mike, it was the Lakers and the Celtics. In the 90s, it was Jordan and the Knicks. And it just seemed like basketball for the last 20 years, whether it's been the fact that basketball sucked or things like the Malice at the Palace, it's kind of soured for people like me. I speak to a lot of people our age, and it's like they just don't watch basketball.
Listen, you could say whatever you want. The ratings might be down, but people are still going to these games.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
People still show up to basketball games. People are still buying the merchandise.
But let me ask you this, Mike. Is it really a case of them going to the games, or is it more a case of them like going to the circus, like Barnum Bailey Circus? It's a Madison Square Garden event. People still go to the Rangers, right? The Rangers have it, 1 in 25 years, right?
Listen, man, people always listen. There's always going to be a bloodlust in a sense of sporting events. People like to see fights at hockey games. People want to see a fight at a basketball game. Some people go to NASCAR races to watch the cars get wrecked. There are people that enjoy that. People like to see a bench clearing brawl in baseball every now and again.
Yeah.
So like this was just the next level of what happened. That beer lands on Artest, and then he just jumps in the stands and goes banana. And he hit the wrong guy. That was the worst part about it.
Yeah, he went up in the stands and he attacked the wrong guy, right?
He just attacked the wrong guy. And then
did you hear what that guy said? He goes, he goes, if you had to do it all over again, what would you have done differently? He goes, I would have tripped Artest sooner.
Yeah.
Because he blew right past that guy, like you said, and he went after the guy who didn't throw the beer.
Yeah.
And I guess as he was running past him, I guess the guy who threw the beer and set the whole thing in motion tripped him.
And then, like you said, those two idiots that went on the floor, and that guy that got just slammed in the face, he got everything he deserved.
Oh, absolutely.
You want to go against these monsters that are out there. That guy looked like he was about like 5'7". Artest is what, 6'5", 6'6", bro?
6'6", 6'7", man. Easy.
Oh, he had him by a foot. And the guy's a professional athlete. You look like I think he said he worked in a barbershop, that guy.
Now he's from Queensbridge, our test, and you said you had a story that you wanted to tell us.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, just off air.
one of my cops one time actually had to go to a hotel. He was fighting with his girlfriend, baby's mother. I don't know what she was, but they were having a fight. He was staying at one of the hotels right by LaGuardia Airport, and it was funny. The cop came in like 2 hours later, and he's like, "Hey, I got an autograph tonight." I'm like, really? From who? He goes, "I just met Ron Artest." I'm like, "Oh, the basketball player." He goes, "Where'd you get his autograph?" He goes, "Here on this complaint report, this domestic incident report he had." And he had to like, in a domestic incident report, you actually have to like, the person has to like write out the story of what happened and then sign their name. So he's like, "I got Ron Artest's autograph." Too bad you got to hand it in. I said you should make a photocopy and put it in your locker.
I've never run into our test, but he comes from our area. Queensbridge, I guess, is near the 59th Street Bridge. Me and Michael live close to Astoria Park. So we never really ran into that crowd, other than going into Manhattan, just driving past there.
Yeah.
And I guess back in the 90s and the late 80s, I think that place was the murder capital of the world. It wasn't the greatest of spots. Right,
Well,
Mike?
Yeah. Queensbridge is actually the largest projects in the United States.
It is. Okay.
Which I never knew that. I mean,
Neither
and
did I.
I actually worked with two cops that grew up there. So, yeah, I worked with two cops that grew up there. And one guy I used to commute with in the police academy, and he would come out like basically in a costume. Like he couldn't let anyone know he was a cop. He'd like put on a different hat, different sneakers instead of shoes. He was like, "No one can know what I do."
Yeah, they wouldn't be too happy with that there, man.
Yeah, and then a girl I worked with, she grew up there as well. And like you would just hear stories, and it was a very bad place in the 80s and 90s, and I would not want to not want to live there. It's one of the biggest, like I said, it's the biggest projects in the country.
That's interesting to know. I always thought that would have been in Chicago, not.
Yeah,
here.
I always thought that too. And when I found that out, I was shocked. And I think I've driven through it maybe once or twice in my life. There's like that main street you can just drive through. When you drive through there, you realize how huge it is in there. You're like, holy mackerel, man. Like it's like building after building. You just keep looking around, like, especially if you ever like drive over the 59th Street Bridge.
Yeah.
To Manhattan, from Queens to Manhattan, driving over, just look over your right shoulder the next time and look at all the rooftops over there. It's amazing.
Yeah, I never noticed how big it was. You see all those buildings as you're going up, towards the 59th Street Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And, listen, I remember driving into Manhattan all those years ago and, constantly going back past there, even late at night, man. Late at night, you see those car washes up near the 59th Street Bridge.
Yeah.
It's like there's some bad stuff going on. There was always bad stuff going on.
Yeah. That was like once you cross past like Broadway, going up 21st Street, you cross like the Mason-Dixon line, man. Like it was kind of like taking your life into your own hands.
Let me ask you a question. Would it begin would the Mason-Dixon line begin at the White Castle, Mike, near the school?
Just about. You know what? Just
right
about. Yeah, that White Castle. Chris and I could probably do 3 or 4 shows just about the old
White Castle.
The old White Castle on 21st Street, man. If you went in there, I mean, let's face it, when you went into a White Castle, it was 3, 4 in the morning and you had a good night out. And that White Castle, man, it was about 6 blocks away from the Queensbridge projects and the Ravenswood houses over there. And then like in the opposite direction, like a mile away is where like me and Chris lived. So you had like this mix of people at like 4 in the morning. And a lot of times,
disaster.
Yeah, a lot of times it just turned into like the Jets and the Sharks. Like I'll tell you right now, man, there were plenty of times I was hungry and I was like coming back from Manhattan at 3, 4 in the morning, and I would drive by that place. And if I saw a crowd of people in there, I just kept it moving, man. Kept it moving. I'll go to 30. Keep it moving, dude. Keep it moving, because that burger might be your last.
Good point, man. Good point. But no, I never ran into our test. It's funny that you brought that up. I know we talked about it off air. I like the documentary. I'm a sports fan. At one point, I was a big basketball fan, And I thought it showed you a couple different sides of it that you just didn't get other than the constant barrage that you got from the ESPN people. And you know, I remember when that, you know, the guy was right. You know, he said in the documentary, you know, ESPN blew that up.
Yeah.
You know,
It's-
every sports
listen,
center
man.
on the hour after the
Yeah.
hour.
Yeah. Hey, man, it's the media. The media's got blood in the water. They're going to go for it, man. I mean, the one guy on it, who is it? Steven Jackson. He was like Sam Jackson in that thing, man. I thought he should have had like a cigarette hanging out. Like, I kick that motherfucker's ass again if I have to. I don't care. I mean, I give it up to him. He was like, hey, man, if my team's going into battle, I'm going into battle with them. He didn't give a shit, you know. And that cost him, I don't know, how many games did he get? 20 games or 25 games?
So Jackson got 25 games. What's his face? Jermaine O'Neal got 20 games.
Yeah.
Artest got suspended for the season.
Yeah, that was the whole season.
I'll tell you
yeah.
why I remember that before they even said it. I had him on my fantasy basketball team, and he was
Okay.
one of the best players in the NBA at
Yeah.
that point in terms of fantasy as well. And I remember my fantasy basketball team took a shit, you know,
Oh,
after
yeah.
Artest, you know, was out for the year. So, and I think next year he came back and he requested a trade, and I guess he went to Sacramento.
Yeah.
Then I guess he ended up with the Lakers. He won 2 championships with the Lakers in 08 and 09. By 2012-13, I think he made one last run with the Knicks. He was on the Knicks for like a year.
Yeah,
By the way, I think he would have been perfect for the Knicks, like the late 90s Knicks. You know,
See, I'll say no, Chris, just for the, like, I'll be devil's advocate. He would have had too many of his friends around him all the time.
I agree.
I think it just would have been a bad mix for the
I think
for the
in
guy.
the best case scenario,
Especially with his like mental state. I think if he would have stuck, you would have heard a story of him like beating the shit out of some guy at a strip club.
oh yeah,
With like
definitely
10
think
of
it
his
would have been
friends.
like that.
It would have, he would have wound up with something like that.
He reminds me. I think in the best case scenario, if he was on the Knicks at that time, I think he would have ended up like Anthony Mason. You know, just a hard-nosed guy, you know,
Yeah.
a fan favorite, you know, played well with the defensive, you know, nature of the club back then. But no, I get it. Listen, I think he would have been like David Wells on steroids, you know, here in New York.
Oh yeah, he would have. Him being here, he would have been like a new Mickey Mantle. Where he would have like ran the city, man. I think, and you know what? It's probably to his advantage that didn't happen, because who knows where that guy? Like I said, who knows what club that guy's hanging out in, what he's doing 3-4 o'clock in the morning. I mean, there was just, who was the guy in the Knicks like 3 years ago? He got robbed in Queens at the strip club. Coming out, they actually like set the dude up. He was at a strip club.
Yes.
We actually had to investigate that club, and I think we wound up hitting him with we shut the place down for a few days.
Was it Gallagher's or Goldfinger's?
No, it was it City Lights, Cityscapes, some shit like that. Dude, they followed that dude out from the Knicks. They boxed in his cab and then just pulled out guns. They wound up shooting the dude. I think he got shot in the leg, shot in the knee or something.
You're right.
I think he was out for like 3 weeks or whatever. But anyway, it's almost about that time. Shit, man. We all we really did was talk about the Knicks and Val.
We talked about Val. We talked about the Malice at the Palace. We talked about the Hurricanes. Delved into Cuomo a little bit. Go ahead.
One more thing. We were talking about sports movies a couple of weeks ago. Best sportsman. You know what we never threw in the mix? Color of Money.
Yes, and I've got an interesting story. So my supervisor at work, her husband, The Color of Money is with, you know, obviously Paul Newman, Tom Cruise. You know, it's about it's a sequel to the Hustler back in the 1960s, right?
Yeah.
You know, with Jackie Gleason, right? And make a long story short, you know, I guess the crux of the story is Tom Cruise is this gifted pool guy who runs into, you know, Fast Eddie, right? And I guess during the course of Fast Eddie mentoring him, he gives him what's called a babushka, which is named after George Babushka, who grew up in Brooklyn. Make a long story short, the babushka is a very, very expensive pool stick. And my supervisor at work, her husband, when George Babushka passed away, bought the company. So I'm not going to throw her name out here on the podcast, but the name of the stick changed from the babushka to her last name. The husband basically bought the company. Well, the father bought the company from babushka when he passed away, and they're the guys that make the pool sticks. But going back to what you're saying, Mike, I would definitely consider the Color of Money as a sports movie. Absolutely.
Yeah,
No,
great movie. Just a really.
I think it won the Academy Award that year, right?
Yeah.
Best Picture. Right?
No, Paul Newman won.
But Best Actor.
Yeah.
Platoon won in '86.
Holy shit, man! I'm looking on eBay right now. It's Balabushka.
Yes.
Okay,
The stick goes for $25,000 to pop.
Here's a restored one for $9,000.
Yep.
Another one for a G, $5,000. I guess they had some low end ones. But
Brand new. The stick goes for $25,000. She was telling me the whole story about it.
Why would I mean? Get out of here.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't spend that much. That's crazy. I mean, I guess.
Hey, well, man, if you're in the pool scene, and if you're really,
if that's your job and you're a hustler, I get it. But man, that's crazy, dude. $25,000 for a pool stick.
$25,000 for a pool stick.
That's wild. That is some wild stuff. That's crazy, man. All right. I think we had a good show. We had a week off. We're back. We had a good time.
Yeah, man.
What didn't we get to? Let's see. What did we talk about next week? Oh yeah, Scarlett Johansson still suing.
ScarJo, man. Yeah, we'll get into that at some point. I want to get into the Anthony Bourdain documentary at some point.
Oh yeah.
He's a favorite of mine, and there's a couple things I read about him that I wasn't really too pleased with, but he actually did a couple shows of I guess Parts Unknown, where me and Michael grew up in Astoria or in Jackson Heights, Elmhurst area.
Yeah.
So I'd like to get into that. We got 9/11 coming up in a couple of weeks. Go into a little bit more detail with that. We got the ScarJo stuff.
Yeah. Robin's a bisexual now in the Batman comics.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff. I don't even want to.
Who else? Oh, the Bad Batch on Star Wars. We were talking about. We didn't get into that.
Yeah, we can talk about that. That's pretty cool.
And the
Ben Kenobi, Obi-Wan Kenobi thing looks like is wrapped up and is ready to go. And
Marvel had that What If series.
I wasn't a fan of that, Mike. I watched it. I really I thought the comics were a lot better. Basically
the comics were always good. They always went like off the wall comics.
Yes,
like it was more like off the wall kind of stuff. So who knows? Maybe down the road they'll get into those.
I watched the first one and it just typical woke stuff. What if Captain America didn't become Captain America? Yeah, and it's really the girlfriend that he pined for, Captain Britain, and she's a female and she looks like the She-Hulk, and it's like. Come on, man.
Yeah, I watched part of it. I like the rotoscoping though they do. That realistic cartoon drawing. Like they did in like the old Lord of the Rings and was that guy Ralph Bakshi, the cartoonist.
Yes.
American Pop. American Pop's a great underrated movie. Go watch the movie American Pop if you can find it anywhere. It's all that is rotoscoping. Check out American Pop. That's a great movie, by the way. You're a music guy, you would love American Pop. I don't know if you ever saw it.
I think a long time ago I've seen it.
It's about like a Jewish family and how music influenced them and how they made money in the music business throughout the years.
I definitely came across it. I think I know what you're talking about. It's a long time though since I've watched that.
But what else has rotoscope? Heavy Metal. Heavy Metal's a great movie. I love that movie.
I saw Heavy Metal. Absolutely.
I can watch that movie over and over and over again. But
a little weird for my taste, but it's cool.
And that's about it. What do you got to plug? Let's plug away. By the way, you've been frozen for about a half hour.
I know, Mike.
At least. Look, that's the longest you've ever smiled, probably.
It's probably the longest I've ever smiled, and it kind of looks like the picture from The Departed, Miles Kennefic, who stole the microprocessors. He goes, "Hey, look. Miles Kennefic, Southeast finest, was found dead in a trash banister." So for those that don't like me, you can kind of, put the memes on here and, meme me up. But in terms of, plugs, guys, I'm going to do Jay Cristiano, Cardinal Financial, 844-442-7334. Give the financial code. Give the code 4215. Mention the podcast. me and Michael. If you're in the refinance or the purchase market, Jay will definitely work with you and very quickly. Real estate market is super hot still. Mad Donkey in 3207, 36th Avenue in Astoria, New York. It's Tommy D's place, or Tommy D's 5-star shopping company, 917-559-8264. Lastly, I've kind of slowed down a little bit, but I'm still pretty booked into September now. But DJ Chris Clash, my website. If you need any sort of music, weddings, private parties, bar mitzvahs, baptisms. I'm tongue-tied at this point, guys. Sorry. Exorcisms, whatever you want. Let's go back to the Blues Brothers for a second.
A bris.
Right?
I mean, he's
been
available.
one of those things. That's not really cool. Either those things. But yeah, definitely check me out, folks. If you have any musical needs, hit me up. I'll work with you. I've got some openings coming up in October now, coming into the Halloween season and I guess the winter wedding season. So that's all I got for tonight, guys.
All right. As always, I got my man Pat Dixon, New York City Crime Report, trying to get him on here, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. Pat will stop in and hang out with us for a little bit. My man Jack at I Can Paint. He's got some great new work up. Check out his Instagram page. Dylan's every Wednesday night. You can check out Christine Meehan-Berg. She does a live free comedy show. These are like headlining comics that you get to watch for free. And Dylan's has great food and great drink specials. You can go check that out. Other than that, folks, we will see you next week. I hope the hurricane don't get everybody. Be safe. And
We don't lose power here, man.
be well. Yeah, fingers crossed. Peace.
Take care, everybody.
See you later. Bye-bye.